The following film illustrates the use of the Symphonie Aqua Polaris system. For a detailed step-by-step introduction, please refer to the user's manual. The Polaris system consists of an inner tank, which is equipped with the Symphonie Aqua membrane, and the new Polaris UV feature. The Polaris system comes with a grip handle, pump lever for leveling feet, for transparent solid cups, for fitting silicone pads, a vected tower, a hose set, a power supply with UV timer, casting lube and sample stockings in different sizes. Set the grip handle height so that a secure and comfortable standing position is possible for the patient. Connect the lever for the pump to the coupling provided directly on the gauge panel. Connect the power supply to the Polaris unit and make sure the connectors are aligned right. Power on the unit and test if it works properly by checking if the UV light turns on when pushing the UV timer button. The following steps are equal with the compact system and will be explained with the compact system. There are two possibilities for filling the system with water. On the upper side of the gauge panel, find the opening in which you can fill in water. We recommend using distilled water for the Polaris system to keep the inner tank and the UV lights as clean as possible. Fill the outer tank until the filling level has been reached. In order to fill the system with the aid of the hand pump, connect the hose to the hose coupling on the gauge panel side of the system. Set the lever to empty an external circuit. Now you can pump fresh water into the outer tank from a pail, sink, or other water source. Using the hand pump, now completely pump the water from the outer tank into the pressure tank with the gauge settings internal tank and fill. This procedure requires approximately 40 pumping movements. Fill until the air from the pressure tank has completely escaped from the gauge panel opening. Then, tightly close the ventilation screw. Next, empty the pressure tank so you can easily place the vector tower, setting the gauge to internal tank and empty. In order to make the patient's impression procedure as comfortable as possible, you can adjust the height of the system. An indication for the optimal height is the upper side of the thigh while the leg is bent at 90 degrees. The levelers can be easily mounted by one-sided tipping. The castor wheels must be mounted on the side of the gauge panel. Consequently, the system can be more easily positioned during the impression procedure. Determine the optimal pressure with the help of the Symphonie Aqua VC app. For this, you need the circumference below the patella at the MPT height, without liner on the skin. The condition of the connective tissue, soft, medium or hard, as well as the athleticism of the patient, where 1 stands for unathletic and 4 for athletic. You can download the Symphonie VC app using the QR code. It is available in the App Store and Google Play Store. Determine the correct height in the system, and then measure the length from the distal end of the residual limb to the desired socket height, and calculate the difference in regard to the entire length of the height compensating disc. In our case, the system height is 480 mm, the measured likely socket length is 220 mm, which results in a vector tower height of 480 minus 220 is equal to 260 mm. Choose the solid cup according to the size of the distal end of the residual limb. The residual limb must not come in contact with the rim of the solid cup. If a solid cup that is too large is chosen, there is too much space between the residual limb and membrane. The distal end cap, height compensating discs and solid cups are screwed together to the calculated length. Double check the right measurement. In our case, 260 millimeters. Then open the membrane fully and insert the vector tower. Make sure the membrane is completely open before placing the vector tower in the pressure tank. Set the gauge to fill and pump water into the pressure tank until the membrane surrounds the solid cup. Now insert the fitting silicone pad. To protect the Symphonie Aqua membrane from residues, apply a liberal amount of Symphonie Aqua casting lube. Determine the right size of the socket pouch by trying on the sample stockings. Place the cutting aid along the knee and outwards. For socket systems which use a liner for attaching the prosthesis, it can be advantageous to carry out the impression with the corresponding liner. If applicable, protect the textile outer fiber of the liner with a thin film like a cling film. Open the right-sized socket pouch carefully. In each pouch are 6 UV reactive textiles. 3 are with a coarse and 3 are with a fine textile. Always start with a finer textile and alternately pull them over the patient's limb. Check that the seams of the textiles are not on top of each other and displace them. After applying all the textiles in the pouch to the patient, Cover them with another layer of cling film. To protect the system from impurity, pull a Symphonie Aqua casting bag over the limb. Using the lever, activate the pump in order to pump the water from the outer tank to the inner tank. Levers on the gauge panel must be set to internal circuit and fill. In a standing position, the patient can now place his or her residual limb in the middle of the cylinder opening, so that there is light contact with the distal bearing cushion. The inner tank is now filled further, until the patient feels a slight pressure. As of approximately 400 millibar, be sure that the patient's residual limb now statically bears the load completely, or as well as possible. Increase the pressure until you reach the calculated pressure. During the impression process, pressure should be kept constant. Now push the UV timer button on the power supply. The UV light will illuminate and the hardening process begins. Keep the pressure constant while the UV light is on. This process takes 5 minutes. After the textile's dressing has hardened and the UV light is off, the patient reduces the load on the amputated side. Set the levers to internal circuit/empty. In order to avoid sinking deeper into the distal bearing cushion, the patient slowly pulls the residual limb out of the system as the water pressure decreases. The patient can now sit down and you can remove the film. Remove the cutting aid to get more space to remove the resin impression. Slowly pull it from the residual limb. The impression is ready. Start to make a Polaris check socket. Empty the inner tank completely and remove the height compensation components. Water can be released from the outer tank by means of the drain plug. Open the draining screw, and the tank will release almost all water from the outer tank. Alternatively, set the levers to external circuit and fill and use the hose to pump out the water from the external tank. We recommend to change the water every week and the membrane every 9 months. For further information, please refer to the user's manual or contact us at support@romatis.de.